The Christmas Eve gathering was mandatory according to family tradition. My cousin Brandon had sent the reminder text 3 days earlier. Don't forget Christmas Eve at Grandma's. 7 p.m. Everyone's coming. That means you too, Claire. I'd confirmed attendance with a simple thumbs-up emoji, knowing that anything more would invite questions I didn't want to answer. Now I sat in my grandmother's living room in Cambridge, Massachusetts, surrounded by the familiar cacophony of my extended family. 23 people crammed into a space designed for 12, everyone talking over each other, the smell of my grandmother's famous sugar cookies mixing with expensive perfume and cheaper wine. I was 31 years old and this was my annual ritual of endurance. My laptop bag sat by my feet even though I knew I wouldn't open it. Inside were 3 manila folders containing documents I'd been reviewing obsessively for the past 6 weeks. Patent applications, peer review confirmations, and a letter from the Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences marked strictly confidential. Tomorrow morning at 5:45 a.m. Eastern Time, the Nobel Committee would announce the recipients of this year's Nobel Prize in Chemistry. My name would be on that list. The youngest recipient in the prize's 124-year history, recognized for my work on revolutionary catalyst molecules that could break down plastic pollution at the molecular level. I'd known for 6 weeks, bound by strict confidentiality agreements. I hadn't told anyone. Not my research team, not my university colleagues, not my family. Especially not my family. Growing up in suburban Boston, I'd always been the strange one. While my cousins played sports and went to parties, I spent weekends at MIT's public science lectures. While they obsessed over homecoming and prom, I was obsessed with chemical bonds and molecular structures. She's gifted, teachers told my parents. Exceptionally so. She should be in advanced programs. But my family had different ideas about what constituted success. My father was a dentist, successful, respected, practical. My mother taught 3rd grade. My older brother Daniel was a cardiac surgeon. My sister Amy was a corporate lawyer. My cousins included 2 investment bankers, a management consultant and a real estate developer. They understood careers with clear paths: medical school, law school, business school. They understood 6-figure salaries, private practices, partner tracks. They didn't understand research science. When are you going to get a real job? Uncle Richard had asked at my PhD graduation 8 years ago. You're almost done being a professional student, right? I have a postdoc position at MIT, I'd explained. Right, but when are you going to use all this education for something practical? Pharmaceuticals? Chemical engineering? Something that pays. I'm doing research on environmental chemistry. He'd laughed, not unkindly. Playing with test tubes. That's sweet, Claire. But eventually you'll need to think about a real career. Mortgage, retirement, security. That conversation had been 8 years ago. The variations of it had continued at every family gathering since. Now I sat on my grandmother's couch wearing the same J. Crew sweater I'd worn for 3 years, drinking grocery store wine from a plastic cup, while my family discussed their impressive lives around me. Daniel just bought a vacation home in the Berkshires, my mother announced proudly. 4 bedrooms right on the lake. That's wonderful, Aunt Mary cooed. Brandon just made managing director at his firm. Youngest in the company's history. And Amy's up for partner this spring, Dad added, beaming. The firm's biggest case went to her team. I sipped my wine and said nothing. Grandmother, perceptive as always at 87, turned to me. And what about you, Claire dear? How is your work at the university? It's good, Grandma. Still doing research? Mom asked, her tone suggesting I was pursuing an extended hobby rather than a career. Yes. On what again? Uncle Richard leaned forward. Something about plastic? Catalytic degradation of polymer chains in marine environments. He blinked. Right. And that means I'm developing molecules that can break down plastic pollution in oceans. That's nice, Aunt Mary said in the voice people use with children explaining their imaginary friends. Such important work, caring about the environment. It's not just caring, I said quietly. It's finding solutions. Of course, of course. She patted my hand. But dear, have you thought about applying this to something more lucrative? Chemical companies must be hiring. I'm exactly where I want to be. Working for the university, Mom said with a sigh. Making what, $60,000 a year? 72. See? That's barely enough to live on in Boston. Meanwhile, Daniel's making 5 times that. Amy's making 4 times that. Even your younger cousins in finance are making more than you. I'm not motivated by salary. Everyone says that until they need to buy a house. Dad interjected. Claire, we're not criticizing. We're worried. You're 31. No house, no significant other, still renting that tiny apartment in Somerville. You're brilliant, but brilliance without direction is just wasted potential. My work has direction. Does it? Uncle Richard challenged. What's the end goal here? You've been at this for years. Where's it going? My research is progressing. But to what end? Will this plastic-eating molecule thing ever be real, or is it just theoretical research that goes nowhere? I took a breath, keeping my voice level. The research is very real. We've had significant breakthroughs. Breakthroughs, Brandon repeated, making air quotes. Claire, I don't mean to be harsh, but I looked up your work once. You've published some papers. That's great. But papers don't change the world. They just sit in academic journals that nobody reads. My papers have been cited over 8,000 times by other researchers, I said quietly. The room went silent for a moment before Aunt Mary spoke. Well, that's impressive, dear. But citations don't pay the bills, do they? Mom set down her wine glass. Claire, honey, we asked you here tonight because we want to have a serious conversation. The whole family has been discussing it and we're concerned about your trajectory. My trajectory is fine. It's not, Dad said firmly. You're in your 30s, still living like a graduate student, working on research that might never amount to anything practical. We want better for you. Better. A real career, Uncle Richard said. Something with security and growth potential. Daniel knows people at several pharmaceutical companies. They're always looking for chemists. Starting salary would be $140,000, plus benefits, plus bonus potential. I'm not interested in pharmaceuticals. Why not? Pride. Because I'm doing work that matters. All work matters if it pays the bills, Mom said. Claire, we love you, but you're being stubborn and unrealistic. It's time to accept that the academic research dream isn't panning out and move on to something substantial. Brandon pulled out his phone. Actually, I pulled some numbers. The median salary for chemistry professors is $82,000. Even if you get tenure eventually, which takes years and isn't guaranteed, you'll max out around $120,000. Meanwhile, in industry, you could be making $200,000 within 5 years. I don't care about salary comparisons. That's because you've never had real money, Amy said, her lawyer voice cutting through the conversation. Once you experience financial security, you'll understand what we're talking about. I have financial security. Do you? Dad challenged. How much do you have in retirement savings? Emergency funds? Investment accounts? I didn't answer. The truth was, I had far more than they imagined. Prudent investments from consulting work I'd done over the years, speaking fees from international conferences, grant money that came with my research breakthroughs. But explaining that would only invite more skepticism. Your silence says everything, Mom said sadly. Claire, we're not trying to attack you. We're trying to help you see reality. You're a brilliant woman who's wasting her potential on research that nobody cares about. The scientific community cares. The scientific community doesn't pay mortgages, Uncle Richard said. Look, I'm going to be blunt because somebody needs to say it. You're the family disappointment, Claire. You had more potential than anyone. Perfect SAT scores, full scholarship to MIT, PhD before you were 25. And what have you done with it? You're a postdoc making less than a high school teacher, living in a studio apartment working on theories that will never see the real world. The words hung in the air like a chemical cloud, toxic and inescapable. Grandmother's voice cut through the silence, sharp and clear. Richard, that's enough. I'm just being honest, Mother. Sometimes love means telling hard truths. Sometimes love means believing in people, she countered. Claire is doing exactly what she should be doing. With all due respect, Mother, you're not objective. You've always had a soft spot for Claire. Because she's brilliant and passionate and following her calling. That should be celebrated, not criticized. Being brilliant doesn't mean anything if you can't monetize it, Brandon interjected. That's just reality in the modern world. I stood up, my movements calm and deliberate. I need to use the restroom. I walked down the familiar hallway to my grandmother's bathroom, locked the door and stood there for 3 minutes, breathing slowly and evenly. This was normal. This was every family gathering for the past 8 years. This was the price of pursuing work they couldn't understand or value. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from my department chair at MIT. Reminder. Embargo lifts at 5:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Media requests are already flooding in. Prepare yourself. I closed my eyes. Less than 11 hours now. When I returned to the living room, the conversation had shifted to Brandon's upcoming wedding, but the damage was done. I could feel their pity and disappointment radiating toward me like heat from a furnace. I sat back down and Mom immediately reached over to squeeze my hand. "We're just worried about you, honey. You understand that, right?" "I understand." "Good. Because Dad and I have been talking and we have a proposition." Dread settled in my stomach. "What kind of proposition?" "We're willing to support you financially for 1 year while you transition to a real career. We'll cover your rent, your expenses, give you breathing room to find a proper position." "I don't need financial support. Claire, please don't let pride." "It's not pride. I don't need your money." "Then what are you living on?" Amy asked. "Because $72,000 in Boston doesn't go far. I manage." "Barely," Dad said. "And that's the point. You shouldn't have to manage at your age with your education. You should be thriving." Aunt Mary jumped back in. "You know, I have a friend whose daughter was just like you. Spent years in academia, thought she was changing the world with her research. Finally woke up at 35 and went into consulting. She's making $250,000 now and actually making a difference in the real world." "I am making a difference. In academic journals that 5 people read," Brandon said. "Claire, come on. When was the last time your research actually impacted anyone's life?" I looked at him steadily. "My research has the potential to save the planet." He laughed. "Hey, sure. You and every environmental researcher ever. But potential doesn't mean anything without results." "I have results. Published papers aren't results. Results are products, solutions, real-world applications that people can use. My work will have real-world applications." "When?" "You've been saying that for years. When does the potential become actual?" I stood again, picking up my bag. "I should go." "Claire, don't leave like this," Mom pleaded. "We're having this conversation because we love you. I know you love me. I also know you don't respect me." "That's not fair," Dad protested. "Isn't it? You just called me the family disappointment. You said my work is worthless. You offered me financial support like I'm a struggling child who needs rescue. Because from where we're sitting, that's what it looks like," Uncle Richard said. "You're 31, broke, unmarried, working on research that goes nowhere. If that's not struggling, what is?" I looked around the room at my family, successful, accomplished, completely certain in their judgments. "I hope you all have a lovely Christmas," I said quietly. "I'm going home." "Claire, please," Mom started. But I was already walking to the door, pulling on my coat, stepping out into the cold December night. The drive back to my apartment in Somerville took 25 minutes. 25 minutes of silence broken only by the sound of sleet hitting my windshield. I wasn't angry. I wasn't hurt. I was just tired. Tired of explaining. Tired of defending. Tired of being seen as a failure because my success didn't look like theirs. My apartment was small. A studio with barely enough room for my bed, my desk, and my bookshelves. But it was mine, paid for with money I'd earned doing work that mattered. I made tea and pulled out my laptop, reviewing the documents one more time. The Nobel Committee's letter was straightforward and formal. The Royal Swedish Academy of Sciences has decided to award the Nobel Prize in Chemistry 2024 to Drive Claire Westbrook for the development of biocatalytic systems capable of degrading persistent organic pollutants at the molecular level. Dr. Westbrook's breakthrough in designing synthetic enzymes that can break down plastics in marine environments represents a transformative advancement in environmental chemistry. The prize came with 11 million Swedish kronor, approximately $1 million US. But more importantly, it came with global recognition that my work mattered. Not that I'd done it for recognition. I'd done it because the ocean was drowning in plastic and nobody else had figured out how to fix it. My phone buzzed. A text from my grandmother. "Don't let them get to you, dear. You're doing extraordinary work. I'm proud of you." I smiled and texted back, "Thank you, Grandma. I love you." "Love you too, Claire. I have a feeling everything is about to change. Trust me." I frowned at the cryptic message but didn't question it. Grandmother had always been perceptive in ways that bordered on mystical. I set my alarm for 5:30 a.m. 15 minutes before the announcement, and tried to sleep. The alarm woke me from restless dreams. I made coffee, pulled on sweatpants and a hoodie and sat at my desk with my laptop open. At 5:45 a.m. exactly, the Nobel Committee's website updated. There it was. My name, my research, my life's work validated by the highest honor in science. My phone immediately exploded with notifications. Texts, calls, emails flooding in so fast I couldn't process them. My department chair, Claire. Congratulations. Media circus incoming. Get to campus immediately. My research advisor, I'm crying. You did it. I always knew you would. My postdoc colleagues, Nobel laureate. We're buying so much champagne. And then starting at 6:03 a.m. my family. Mom, Claire, someone posted something about the Nobel Prize with your name? Is this a mistake? Dad, Claire, call me immediately. The news is saying something impossible. Brandon, is this real? Did you win the Nobel Prize? Amy, I need you to call me right now. Everyone's asking me questions. I ignored them all and pulled on real clothes. MIT was expecting me. The media was expecting me. The world was expecting me. My phone rang, a number with a Swedish country code. The Nobel Committee's official congratulations call. Dr. Westbrook, congratulations on your extraordinary achievement. By 8 a.m. I was on campus surrounded by reporters, cameras and colleagues. The press conference was controlled chaos. Questions flew from every direction. Dr. Westbrook, at 31, you're the youngest Nobel laureate in chemistry history. How does that feel? How long have you been working on this research? What are the real-world applications? When will we see this technology deployed? I answered professionally, explaining my research in terms both scientific and accessible. My catalyst molecules could break down plastics in ocean water within months rather than centuries. Early trials showed 94% degradation efficiency. We were partnering with environmental organizations for large-scale ocean cleanup projects. This isn't just theory, I emphasized. This is a practical solution to one of our planet's most pressing environmental crises. The MIT president appeared, beaming. Dr. Westbrook is an extraordinary example of why we invest in fundamental research. This is the kind of breakthrough that changes the world. By noon I was trending on every social media platform. Hashtag Nobel Prize, hashtag youngest laureate, hashtag plastic solution, hashtag Dear Claire Westbrook. By 2 p.m. CNN, BBC and Reuters had all published extensive profiles. By 4 p.m. the President of the United States had tweeted congratulations. And my phone kept buzzing with messages from family members I hadn't responded to. At 6 p.m., exhausted from interviews and press conferences, I finally returned home. My apartment building lobby was packed with reporters. Building security helped me slip in through the service entrance. I collapsed on my bed, staring at the ceiling and finally, allowed myself to feel it. I'd won the Nobel Prize. I'd done exactly what Uncle Richard said would never happen. I'd made my research matter in the real world. My doorbell rang at 6:47 p.m. I opened it to find my entire family standing there. Mom, Dad, Daniel, Amy, Uncle Richard, Aunt Mary, Brandon, and my grandmother in her wheelchair pushed by my cousin. They looked shell-shocked. Claire, Mom started, her voice breaking. We've been trying to reach you all day. I've been busy. The Nobel Prize, Dad said, his voice hollow. You won the Nobel Prize. Yes. The youngest recipient in the history of chemistry, Amy added. That's what every news outlet is saying. That's correct. Uncle Richard stepped forward, his usual confidence completely absent. Claire, we had no idea. No idea about what? That your research was this significant. This revolutionary. The news is calling you the scientist who will save the oceans. They're saying your discovery is one of the most important environmental breakthroughs in decades. My research has always been this significant, I said quietly. You just didn't believe it. Because you never told us. Brandon protested. You never said you were on the verge of winning a Nobel Prize. I didn't know I was winning until 6 weeks ago. And I couldn't tell anyone due to confidentiality agreements. But more importantly, I've been telling you for 8 years that my research was important. You chose not to believe me. Mom was crying now. Honey, if we'd known. If you'd known what? That external authorities would eventually validate my work? Mom, last night you called my research wasted potential. You said I was a disappointment to the family. I didn't say that, she protested weakly. Uncle Richard did. And none of you disagreed. Aunt Mary stepped forward, her face red. Claire, we were concerned about your financial future. We didn't realize that I was doing groundbreaking work. You didn't realize because you didn't ask. You assumed that because I wasn't making investment banker money, I must be failing. Daniel, who'd been silent until now, spoke up. The news said the prize comes with about $1 million. 11 million Swedish kronor, yes. That's more than I make in 2 years, he said quietly. And you've probably been sitting on this knowledge for weeks while we lectured you about getting a real job. 6 weeks. Jesus, Claire. He ran his hand through his hair. You let us criticize you, offer you money, call you a disappointment, and you never said a word. What would I have said? Actually, I'm about to win the Nobel Prize, so your opinions are irrelevant? You wouldn't have believed me anyway. That's not fair, Dad protested. Isn't it? Dad, you looked me in the eye last night and said my work goes nowhere. You said I should abandon research for a pharmaceutical job. Would you have believed me if I told you the Nobel Committee had selected me? His silence was answer enough. Grandmother spoke for the first time, her voice strong despite her age. They wouldn't have believed you, Claire. Which is why you had to let the world tell them. Mother, that's not helpful, Uncle Richard said. It's true, she countered. You all decided years ago that Claire was wasting her life. Nothing she said could change your minds because you'd stopped listening. Brandon pulled out his phone, scrolling frantically. Claire, you're everywhere. CNN, BBC, New York Times, Washington Post. There's a profile on you in Nature. Another in Science magazine. The UN Secretary-General issued a statement about your work. I know. How are you so calm about this? Because the work is what matters. Not the recognition. But it's the Nobel Prize, Amy said. The Nobel Prize. Do you understand what this means? What does it mean to you, Amy? He stopped, confused. What do you mean? Last night my work was worthless. Today it's extraordinary. The only thing that changed is that someone else told you it was valuable. So I'm asking, what does my Nobel Prize mean to you? She couldn't answer. Mom moved closer, reaching out to touch my arm. Claire, we're sorry. We're so incredibly sorry. We should have believed in you. We should have supported your work instead of criticizing it. Yes, I agreed simply. You should have. Can you forgive us? I looked at her, at all of them, standing in my tiny apartment hallway, their faces a mixture of shame and awe and desperate hope for absolution. I forgive you, I said quietly. But I don't forget. You spent 8 years telling me my life's work was worthless. You called me a disappointment 12 hours before the world called me a Nobel laureate. That doesn't just disappear because I won a prize. We know, Dad said, his voice rough. And we know we don't deserve your forgiveness. But Claire, we want to do better. We want to support you properly going forward. Going forward? I shook my head. Dad, I don't need your support going forward. I needed it for the past 8 years and you didn't give it. I built this achievement without you. I proved my work's value without your belief. Your support now is irrelevant. Please don't say that, Mom pleaded. It's true. You believed in me when the Nobel Committee told you to. That's not belief, Mom. That's following external validation. Uncle Richard cleared his throat. For what it's worth, Claire, I've been getting calls all day. Everyone I know has seen the news. And they're all asking why I never mentioned having a Nobel Prize winner in the family. What did you tell them? That I didn't know. That you never told us how significant your work was. And what did they say to that? His face reddened. They implied that I should have known. That families should pay attention to each other's lives. They're right. Brandon was scrolling through his phone again. MIT's issuing a press release about you. They're calling you one of the most brilliant minds of our generation. The governor wants to give you an award. The mayor's office is planning a celebration. I know. My department chair has been coordinating it all. Your department chair, Amy repeated. The person who sees you every day saw your brilliance while we, your family, called you a disappointment. Yes. Grandmother spoke again. Claire, dear, what happens now? Will you accept their apologies and try to rebuild these relationships? Or will you close this door? I considered the question carefully. I don't know, Grandma. That depends on whether they can learn to believe in me without external validation. Whether they can see value in work that doesn't look like conventional success. Whether they can trust me when I tell them something matters, even if they don't understand it. We can do that, Mom said quickly. Can you? Because last night you couldn't. Last night, you offered me money to abandon my research and get a real job. What happens next time I'm working on something you don't understand? Will you believe me, or will you wait for the next Nobel Committee to tell you it's valid? They looked at each other, uncertainty written across their faces. I don't know, Dad said finally. But I want to learn. I want to be the kind of father who believes in his daughter without needing external proof. That's all I can ask for. Daniel stepped forward. Claire, can I say something? I nodded. I've spent my entire career being the successful Westbrook sibling. The surgeon, the one who made it, the one everyone was proud of. And today, every single person I know has asked me about you. My colleagues, my patients, people I haven't spoken to in years. Everyone wants to know about my sister, the Nobel laureate. And I realized something. What? That I've been measuring success by the wrong metrics. I thought success was salary and prestige and recognition. But you've been doing work that will literally save the planet, and I've been calling you a disappointment because you weren't making as much money as me. Yes, I said. You have. I'm sorry for that. I'm deeply, truly sorry. Amy moved closer. The news interviewed one of your colleagues. She said you work 16-hour days, that you're obsessed with solving environmental problems, that you've turned down multiple high-paying industry jobs to stay in research. She said you're the most dedicated scientist she's ever known. That's correct. And we called you directionless. We said you were wasting your potential. Yes. How do we make that right? I don't know if you can, I said honestly. You judged me for 8 years without ever trying to understand what I was doing. You valued money over meaning, prestige over purpose, conventional success over revolutionary science. That's a fundamental difference in how we see the world. But we can change, Brandon insisted. We can learn to value what you value. Can you? Or will you just learn to value what the Nobel Committee values? The question hung in the air, unanswerable. My phone rang. My department chair again. Claire, I'm sorry to interrupt, but CNN wants a live interview in 30 minutes. Can you make it to campus? I'll be there in 20. I hung up and looked at my family. I need to go. The media wants more interviews. Of course, Mom said. Of course you do. You're famous now. I'm not famous. I'm a scientist who did good work that happened to get recognized. Claire, Grandmother said. Before you go, one question. Yes, Grandma. Are you happy? With everything you've accomplished, with the path you've chosen, are you happy? I thought about it. About the 8 years of research. The failures and breakthroughs. The long nights in the lab. The moments of discovery that made everything worth it. Yes, I said. I'm happy. I'm doing work that matters. Work that will make a real difference in the world. That's all I ever wanted. She smiled. Then you've already succeeded more than anyone in this room. I left them standing in my hallway and drove back to campus. The CNN interview went well. Then Bloomberg. Then BBC World Service. Then a live call with the UN Environmental Program. By midnight, I'd done 14 interviews across 6 countries. At 2 a.m. I finally returned home to find a note slipped under my door. Claire, we know we don't deserve your forgiveness or your time. But if you ever want to try to rebuild our relationship on better foundations, we're here. We'll wait as long as it takes. We're proud of you even though we failed to show it when it mattered most. Your family. I set the note on my desk and pulled up the news coverage one more time. The headlines were all variations on the same theme. Youngest Nobel laureate develops revolutionary plastic-eating catalyst. MIT researcher's breakthrough could save the oceans. Nobel Prize winner. The brilliant mind nobody expected. That last one made me laugh. Nobody expected it because nobody had been paying attention. My phone buzzed with a text from my grandmother. I always knew you'd change the world. I just didn't know it would be this soon. Love you, Nobel laureate. I smiled and texted back, love you too, Grandma. Another text came through, this one from Uncle Richard. I've been thinking about what you said. You're right. We didn't believe in you because we were too busy believing in our own definition of success. That was our failure, not yours. I'm sorry. I didn't respond. Not yet. Maybe not for a while. Instead, I pulled out my research notes and started planning the next phase. The Nobel Prize was recognition for work already done. But there was still so much more to do. Oceans to clean. Plastics to eliminate. The planet to save. The Nobel Committee had validated my past. But my future was mine to build. With or without my family's belief. Tomorrow morning, I'd fly to Stockholm for the award ceremony. Next month, I'd testify before the UN on environmental policy. Next year, I'd launch the first large-scale ocean cleanup pilot program. My family had called me a disappointment while I was changing the world. The Nobel Prize just made it official that they were wrong. And that was validation enough.